Welcome to the 2022 Economic Depression and Preparation Channel. I'm your host, Tony. Thank you for joining me on this November 16, 2022 edition. Hump Day Wednesday. Please be sure to subscribe to Preach to Me for the latest financial news in the United States and abroad sometimes. I thank you for your support and your comments. I appreciate this community, and I want others to be a part of to join and be a part of this wonderful community as well. So today we're going to talk about briefly three items of concern. The world economy is breaking apart in terms of separatism. It was globalism that got us into this mess, and now it's going to be each economy for themselves, meaning the UK economy, the US, the Chinese economy, and other economies, India and the BRIC nations, all going and protecting their resources for their people as the world now crosses 8 billion people, as you've heard on the news, that we're now over 8 billion people worldwide population. Now, also going to talk about the Federal Reserve Bank possibly slowing down the rate hikes that they're going to be exhibiting from December onward, but that it's not a guarantee. And U.S. retail sales did rise 1.3%, kind of stagnant, but it did rise. So let's get right into it, ladies and gentlemen. The world economy needs more economic alliances, quote, than security ones, analyst says. This is on CNBC.com. Countries should, quote, strike up more economic alliances than security and defense ones, as the world could become, quote unquote, more dangerous, the president of the Center of China on Globalization said on Tuesday. And, now that the midterms are over and everything is kind of settled down, the world economy is still in turmoil in terms of the U.S. trying to create partnerships with other countries. Now, before, we've had many trans-Pacific partnerships. As you know, President Obama was a strong proponent of that. He got us into that thing. And as you know, President Clinton got us into NAFTA, North America Free Trade Agreement, back in the mid-90s. And President Bush and W. Bush, Herbert Walker Bush, and the recent Bush as well got us into some world trade organizations and more deals of that, because during that time, globalization was big. The U.S., quote unquote, is the vibe of globalization, has always taken the lead on globalization. Well, now as we're going into depression or severe recession, I should say, countries are now saying that they want to protect their resources, the natural resources, meaning that oil, water, natural gas, land, timber, things of those nature. They want to go into protectionism now, as they're basically saying that we want to have our countries to protect and fend for ourselves. Also, the Federal Reserve Bank came out today. Mr. Waller, one of the governors, says he hasn't made up his mind yet. This guy, he says that there's 12 governors on the Federal Reserve Bank board that makes these decisions. For those of you who don't know, that's how it works. And they call it a FOMC, Federal Open Market Committee decisions, and every month they meet on deciding whether or not to raise interest rates. So now he agrees, he's more comfortable with the idea, according to MarketWatch.com, of slowing down the pace of rate hikes. This would be great news for the markets, as you know. Great news for Wall Street, not so great news for Main Street and those of us in the working world, because this means that if they backtrack now, this means that your dollar, your purchasing power, will lose more points. So now that they're considering, he'll be comfortable stepping down to a 50 basis point rate hike. As you know, they've been doing 75 basis point rate hikes for the last 4 rate hikes we've had since March of this year. So coming down to a 50 basis point rate hike would be seen as good news and seen as the beginning of a Federal Reserve Bank pivot towards slowing down the rate hikes or stopping them altogether and beginning what they would call quantitative easing. In other words, money printing again, starting up the hoses for money printing again. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm presenting both sides. Should we go to another rate hike of 75 basis points or even the full point, or should we step back on the interest rate hikes because it's hurting the economy heading into the holiday season, and just backtrack on that? Let me know what you think in the comments. But the next Federal Reserve interest rate meeting is on December 13th and 14th, as you know, right before Christmas, and the consensus is that they're going to raise again 75 basis point hikes. Here it is right here. This is what I was just talking about. The 4 straight 75 basis rate hikes since June. I'm sorry, I said March, but since June. So in any event, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is in the rock and a hard place, because he told reporters that, quote, even at a slower pace, the Fed might move rates higher than the ultimate 4.5 to 4.75 range most officials had expected last summer. In any event, the inflation continues to be higher than what's anticipated. And so because of which, we're still at a catch-22, because if we raise rates, we're still not raising rates high enough to meet the need of inflation. In order to meet the need of inflation, according to the official numbers at 7.7%, we would have to raise rates up to 8 or 9%. Guaranteed. We're nowhere near that right now. So it's basic math, basic supply and demand here. But according to the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, slowing global economic growth is increasingly evident, high-frequency data shows. So there's multiple headwinds for those aviation majors weighing on the growth, and further policy tightening is expected amid the need to bring down elevated inflation. So it's clear, according to the IMF and the World Bank and the World Economic Outlook, that the G20 economies, this is worldwide, is slowing down. As you can see, it's all in the red here for the U.S., Italy, Germany, Korea, Japan. Name me one economy that has fared this since the pandemic that has failed absolutely growing at a 3% or above clip here. Look, UK, since July, all of these economies have been in the red. US, Italy, Germany, Korea, Japan, Canada, Spain, or even in the emerging market economies. Turkey, as you know, had the collapse of the lira currency. Look at it. Since March, they've been in the red. Mexico's been in the red. They've had a few positive months. Indonesia's had a few positive months. They're starting to weather the storm. South Africa, they signed that deal with China. South Africa in the red. Russia deep red as the war takes its toll. China, they've been in the red, but they're starting to recover. But now they're back in the red, according to IMF. Brazil, India, and Saudi Arabia are doing well because the oil and exporting has been more than they're importing, and so they haven't had as much red. But the chart illustrates that the majority of the world economies is in debt, and they're in debt, and they're bleeding money and also bleeding currency. The currency's devaluing. Our currency's devaluing. Look at the national debt, $31 trillion, despite President Biden saying that he was lowering the national debt in one speech he gave 2 days ago. The debt is still at $31 trillion and growing. That's $93,000, $831, over $93,000 for each and every one of us as citizens of this great country. And so we only bring in $4 trillion of U.S. federal tax revenue. And our debt at the states is over $1.2 trillion. So that's a lot. That is a lot. So we have a debt to GDP ratio of over 100%, 135.20%, and this is continuing. Who is going to pay for these migrants, by the way, that's coming into Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Boston? Remember, they have to be housed, fed, clothed, as any American or any person would be in this country. But who is paying for that? So that's the question. Is the states paying for this, guys? Ladies and gentlemen, is the federal government paying for this? Is the local cities and municipalities paying for these migrants that are continuing to flood our borders, not just the southern border? And remember, folks, this is not just Mexicans. I've talked to many people. This is El Salvadorans. This is Venezuelans. These are people far as away as Brazil and Venezuela from Central America. These are people as far away from Africa. Everybody's coming in here via the southern border. So it's not just quote unquote Mexicans. Everybody's coming in as their economies are collapsing. That's the main reason why they're coming in, is because those countries' economies are in the process of collapsing, or have already collapsed, and the U.S. is the last domino to fall. Now we see here, U.S. retail sales rose 1.3% last month, a sign of resilience. And of course, the news, the AP News, shows somebody looking at the big screen TVs. I guess apparently, people are going and buying electronics and things of that nature. They're trying to show you that people are buying those goods. I don't think so. Let me know what you see in your area, but I don't see that as being a need. I see people are more preparing. They're buying more of things that they need, necessities items. They're not buying things unless certain things just break down. Like somebody said a water heater broke down, they had to pay $1,400 to get that repaired. Stuff like that. That's a necessity. But I don't see people buying extraneous TVs or sound bars or things of that nature. Actually, I think deflation in the electronics are going to happen sooner, and a lot of those products and computers, laptops, deflation is going to happen in that, where everything else goes up in hyperinflation with food and water and things that we actually need. So that's something to look out for. And this report says, quote, consumers are likely turning to, quote, credit to support spending as wage growth lags inflation and high prices are eating away from the stock of savings, says Jeffrey Roach, chief economist, LPL Financial. Well, tell us something that we don't know. Prices are high, wages are not going up, paychecks are not going up, and consumer debt, or credit card debt, as we call it, is going up on the balances. So that's no surprise there, ladies and gentlemen, as these prices continue to rise. The question will be for you and I is, what will we do when all of the money dries up in terms of the credit, in terms of the stimulus checks, the rent moratoriums, and all of that dries up because President Biden and Congress has already declared the pandemic to be over as of this week. They said the national emergency for the COVID pandemic is over. So that means that what's going to happen to all of the moratoriums on student loans, rent moratoriums, housing moratoriums, all of that that was in place to help people pay for the utilities and different things. What's going to happen towards that as we go towards winter time and next year? And let me know in the comments, what do you think? Take care. God bless. Continue to prepare physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. And remember that you're never alone. God is with us. Our family is with us. And those around the world, all of us are in this together in the same boat as citizens of this country and citizens abroad, whether in the UK, US, Africa, Asia, South America. We're all in this together. So be safe, my friends. I'll talk to you very soon. Take care. God bless.